Every day that Juventus is in first place in the Serie A is a good day. You're the Calcio Guys.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Time to go, Johnny. Let's go.
Salutate la capolista.
Beats 2 bottom half teams.
Come mai? Come mai?
La
La Champions League tu non la vinci mai.
Oh man, it feels like it's been a long time. I don't know the exact numbers the last time Juve was in first place, but I'm sure it's been a long time. Yeah, just so many things have gone wrong the past 2 seasons, so it feels good to just see them back in first. I know it probably won't last that long. At least having I guess you could say stranglehold, like tied with no other teams. This weekend coming up, it's gonna be a big game, Juve Roma. But we'll see. There's a lot of couch foot to be played. 36 weeks left. It's only match day 2. But hey, I'll take it 2-3-0 wins. We'll talk some Juve, but in all honesty, I feel like our teams are kind of on the opposite of the spectrum right now, especially Milan, even you could say even Roma. Neither of them have picked up a win yet. Lost this weekend, Adri. I don't know if Adri wants to start or John, you want to start. But I didn't ask you guys how you guys doing. First of all,
well, besides that intro, yeah.
I mean, I don't know where the Juventus guys here for a second. I figured, okay, I guess we're the Juventus guys.
That'll never happen. That'll never happen. Not on mine and Chinese watch. That'll never happen. But besides that, I think we're good. Obviously, the results over the weekend for our teams, besides Johnny's Napoli, is so. But yeah, man, happy to be back. Another episode of Calcio Guys.
I'm doing well. Summer break is about to finish, so I'm going to get back to the whole teaching/university gig. So that's going to be happening soon for me.
You're going to teach the kids Serie A history?
I wish. That'd be fun. Actually, the placement teacher that I have to finish up my stage, he's Italian too, so it's going to be fun. I'm going to find out which team he supports and see where we can go from there.
A little banter.
If you like soccer.
I mean, yeah, he asked me if I can coach football. I'm like, nah, I'm not a football. As much as I love the sport, I never coached football before, let alone play it.
I'm sure you could do it. I'm sure you could pull it off.
That'd be funny. Imagine
Johnny Belichick on the sideline.
Hey, one kid dream, okay? I just got to get myself a hoodie and
torn up
and a headset,
no sleeves,
headset, and just
mean mug.
Yeah. I bet you could probably coach better than Fonseca or De Rossi right now, but
more better,
bro. But let's might as well just start with Roma. 0-0 in week 1 against Cagliari. This past week, 2-1 against Empoli at home on top of it. And this is a game that Empoli scored first with Giassi in the 45th minute. Colombo added another with a penalty in the 61st. So Roma, they never had a lead in the game. They didn't come back once Empoli scored. Obviously, Shomorodov scored at the 80th minute, but it was, I wouldn't say it was game over by that point. It's 2-goal lead, it's not much, but just a dominating effort, I guess you could say, by Empoli. Even though the possession stats don't say that, 73-27 for Roma. Kind of reminds me of the Napoli Verona game. Mm-hmm. But Gianni, what did you make of it?
Well, as I said last week, it seems that they have like the worst luck in terms of finishing. And that trend is seeming to continue, where they just have this difficulty of just not being able to get the job done when they're in their final third. Defensively, they were a mess. It was horrible. It was horrendous to watch. Definitely not one of their strong suits as it was last season or season. Actually, season before was much better. They definitely have regressed in that domain. But it just in terms of offensively, it was just poor luck. It's just they're getting their chances. They just can't convert on them. So that's another concern. I do want to say that with the fact that Dybala staying and stuff, it's nice to see. I wasn't too upset with him and stuff with like any performance issues. A lot of people have been kind of feeling like as if he has been phoning it in or he doesn't want to be there. I don't really get that sense from him. I think he still puts in a decent effort. Pellegrini is getting back in there, but it's frustrating because past 2 games that haven't been the best results, and it's not against strong teams that you that you expect these type of results from. These are the teams that you should be getting W's from this, not draw losses. So, and that's what's concerning. So, it's more like, okay, when is this wake up call going to happen? Window is going to close in 3 days, so it's a bit too late to get anything. So it's more like, even if you do that, let's say that as we started off the show with the alleged Salamakers and Abraham swap, I don't think that's going to change anything. That isn't really going to do much. You're just getting rid of your surplus in front to reinforce the mid, right? So, Salamakers is a mid, right? He's a right mid, right?
Yeah,
he's a right mid, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's a right mid, but either way, it's just more disorganization in the back, which really is a concern for me. So,
speaking of concern, there's what is there in the background there? A little firefighter, a little cops.
Classic Saint Michel. Johnny probably doesn't even hear it because he's so used to it.
Yeah, I have my headphones on or whatever, but
we
we
hear it. Our listeners down in Australia probably hear it too. Our friend Dieter's going to hear it.
Somebody's on the loose.
My God, I'm not hearing it right now. Oh, because my window's open. That's why I'm just here trying to give a freaking.
When you live in the hood, you don't even hear it anymore.
You just become so used to it at this point, right? Like
it's like it's like the birds chirping. Another cop car going.
For context for the listeners, I live in the ghetto part of Montreal, so for me it's more like another day. I'm not kidding. There was one night where I was just lying down in my bed. I heard a gunshot. Like it seemed like as if it was down the road, and I'm just like, okay. Close the blinds. Let's just continue playing video games.
Enough internet for today. Enough real life for today.
GTA 6, but really, really realistic.
Yeah, no, seriously. But all in all, frustrating game for Roma's. For Roma this weekend, especially when it's a game that you really do expect a W and you don't get it. So we'll see come this weekend. Playing against Juventus, which is going to be a tough one, terrible one, but hopefully they put on a good fight. Who knows? Maybe they might surprise, but I have doubts.
One thing I'd say before we go on to Milan, it feels like, I don't know what the expectations were for Roma heading into the season, but it just feels like classic Roma, bump in the road. I'm sure they'll recover from it.
I mean, expectations were top 4, and it just doesn't seem that way right now.
It's tough. It's a tough league. 4 teams out of 20, it's tough to get into. But
some acquisitions too that they've added and have to integrate. But how actually, Johnny, since we're on that topic, how do you feel about the new additions on the squad? Obviously not going to throw in the Salamakers yet because if that's obviously not official, but the people that you did pick up, Dovbyk, Lefay, these other players that Roma have acquired, what do you make of them so far? And what can De Rossi do to kind of maybe turn the page?
I so far out of the new acquisitions, it's only 2 games in, so it's kind of hard to say how I truly feel about them. It'd be really unfair to pass judgment on them. I mean, Sule seems okay. Like Dovbyk, like last game, he just had terrible luck. It's just surprising that the first goal of the season so far comes from Eddie Schmerda, as Aldi Schmerda, as Mass and I like to call him. It's there was this Pellegrini came close a few times. It's more like right now it's hard to focus on the individuals when the unit is not producing. In my eyes, it's everyone is just overall not performing at their best. But it's more like, okay, let's give it I feel like the best way is to always give it like a 10-game sample size. So like maybe like about 1/3 of the season to eventually pass judgment. Okay, what have they done in this first third? Have they merited criticism or praise? Like just you go from there. So don't really have much to say about the newest acquisitions. But you can see that there's De Rossi right now has got a bit of it's his first big challenge as a manager for lack of a better term, an upper tier club, whether it's in the La Liga, Prem, Serie A, Bundesliga. It's like when you're like Roma is up there in the upper clubs, and it's like they're tough teams to manage. And so like,
especially for him, like with the ties.
Exactly. So he's got his hands full at the moment, and I'm curious to see what he goes from here. He's the one that I really have my eye on the most. That's the players themselves are the players. Like they only do as well as the coach manages them. So let's see what De Rossi goes from here. He's the guy I'm going to be watching more.
Even for me, even Dybala just to throw in there, like just to bounce off, because he now decided to stay. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was a bit shocked. I did think he would take the bag. That's these sums of money that some of these foreign clubs are putting out there is ridiculous. And I honestly thought he would take it. He didn't. I don't know if there's a method to the madness behind the scenes that we're not really sure about, but I think the bit of the over exaggeration with Dybala saving football here, like guys, let's take it easy on that. But football's already screwed up, so there's no saving here, and so. Good to still see him in the league, sure, but I think the over exaggeration of people making it more than what it is a bit of a stretch. But I was a bit surprised to see that he's sticking around. But again, like I said to open, our preview show, I want to see, and I agree with Johnny. I want to see how De Rossi was going to do with his first full year in charge, and kind of off of the filling in for Mourinho, that juice that was in, and that hype that was there for De Rossi coming in and kind of quote unquote saving the day, if you will. Now is the real test. So I agree with Johnny on that one, and I think a lot of the weight also goes on a guy like Dybala being one of, if not their best player, and an important piece of the puzzle at Roma.
Versus Milan, Adri, it feels like the expectations were high. They're coming off. I forget, Pioli, was he fired or was it contract just ended?
Well, they kind of mutually parted ways. Fired. Yeah,
it did feel like it was coming to an end regardless. But if you move on from one coach, it feels like you have to improve. You have to get an upgrade. And even just the coach that hired himself, it doesn't feel like an upgrade. Felt like a sideways move. And through 2 games, I know you don't want to press the panic button already. It's 2 games. But the fact that they tied last week and this week they lost 2-1 to Parma, newly promoted team. If I'm a Milan fan, I'm a bit worried already. This screams Gianpaolo from 2019, where when was he fired in October?
Think, after 6-7 games, I think.
Yeah, that's when Pioli came in.
Exactly.
But it already feels like it's already on that path. Maybe Pioli will come back.
Let's pump the brakes. Let's hope not. I don't want to start recycling coaches, but listen, everybody that's followed this podcast and has listened to my takes on Pioli, I think he gave what he could, and like you said, Nick, at the end, I think it was kind of written in the stars that they would kind of go their separate ways, and no bad blood, because again, I'll say it again on this show, but on this episode of the podcast, but Pioli brought us to places that we hadn't seen in a long time, things that we, trophies that we haven't touched in a long time, and progression in Champions League that we hadn't seen in quite some time as well. So for that, you're forever grateful. Unfortunately, he wasn't that X factor coach to take us to that next level and kind of really build off that. And you bring in a guy like Fonseca that, again, I had a bit of doubts with. I wasn't my preferred coach to bring in, to be honest with you. And I don't think a lot of Milan fans were really hyped of the move. But again, you take it with a grain of salt, and you kind of try to ride out that early wave. And so far, this early wave has been really rocky and really bumpy. So it's obviously not the ideal start. Like you said, Nick, the expectations were definitely high, especially coming off a season that it was such a landslide from first to second. Yeah, we finished in the top 4, and we can, I guess, be happy about that. But you always want more. You always want more, especially coming off now going on the 3rd season removed of a Scudetto winning team. People are going to say it's by fluke. We overachieved, all those things. That's fine. At the end of the day, the Scudetto was ours. But so far with Fonseca, it's a bit worrying. But again, I still want to give it time. I don't want to go back into, like you said, Nick, that Gianpaolo phase of, bringing in a coach and kind of getting rid of him, so soon. Was this purely the Fonseca move, 4 quarters for $1? So far, kind of slowly looking like that lateral move, like you said. But again, it's an adjustment period. I think these early stretches of the season is always going to be tough. It's not always that you're going to get a situation like Juve that it's rolling so far with a new coach and some new players and a new system. That happens, and then you see the flip side where you get a coach like Fonseca that draws and only picks up 1 point in 2 games. You get a guy like Conte that comes in that loses the first match with a trashing of a 3-0 result. So it's these early season jitters and bumps. But again, I don't want to give excuses because the team needs to play better. But in whole, what is the identity of this club? What is the identity of this project, and where does this team want to go? So far, it seems like none of those questions are answered, and maybe that's also another worrying thing. But I'm willing to give Fonseca the time because there are stretches in the matches that we do look good. Does that last for 90 minutes or a good stretch of 60 odd minutes? Maybe not, but I think to Johnny's point about Roma, I think Milan is having a bit of that unlucky factor in the final third, where I've said it again on this show many times that Milan has had problems finishing in the final third. Create all the chances we want, but at the end of the day, you need to put the ball in the back of the net, and unfortunately, that's not happening at a level that we want. I guess doesn't help that we lose our striker in Giroud and pick up Morata, and he's already out. Probably even will be out this weekend against Lazio. So, and it's clear that Jovic is not Jovic and Okafor. And Okafor I like. Don't get me wrong. Super sub of dreams. It seems like every time he comes on, into the matches, he does something. But to start on minute 1, I don't think it's his forte. And Jovic, if he doesn't get that service, and he's usually at the right place at the right time, but if he's not getting that service, he kind of just seems to be trotting around, not really doing much to kind of help the attack go forward. So I think there's a lot of moving parts in Milan's start being this way. I'm hoping to kind of put a bit of these to bed and kind of turn the page. I know there's a lot of criticism on our top players, especially Leao. I know Gazzetta, I think, had him rated with the lowest rating in terms of the players for the match against Parma. I think they gave him a 4 rating, which again is probably maybe a bit unjust, but since it's Leao, there's going to be those harsh criticisms, which I understand. But again, defensively, we look, really, really, it's a little scary defensively, I gotta say. Besides Pavlovic, that kind of looked to be, in charge defensively. It's been a new signing, which was surprising. He looked to be all over the place and can really cover all corners in defense. But Calabria looks off. Teo, just letting guys go like behind them. It's just kind of not. I thought we kind of put that away with Teo's defensive game. I thought he improved from that. Maybe again, it's early season, so we'll give him the pass and the benefit of the doubt. But this cannot continue, because if we're this shaky defensively, we already let in 4 goals against, again, no offense to Torino and Parma, but lower competition. What's going to happen when we face the Inters of the world, the Juves of the world that are so far clicking, even the Napolis of the world to that extent, Atalantas, So we got to shore up the defense for sure. Emerson Real came in for his debut, looked atrocious. This guy came onto the pitch and he already looked mezza mort, which was already concerning. So again, I don't know what it needs to be, if it needs to start in training or what, but this team needs to get on the same page. I think upper management needs to kind of get together and also, kind of identify what the problems are, and kind of as a unit go forward, because like I said, we cannot continue this path, and especially if we want to get back into top four, challenge for a Scudetto, go far in Europe, things need to change, and they need to change fast.
I might as well talk about Juve first before Johnny could talk about Napoli. But I looked it up. Last time Juve was in first place was actually last season. They were in first place for one match day after match day 21. And that's when it went downhill, because the week after, I think they tied or they lost to Empoli, and then they lost to Inter, and that's when it went all downhill. And that was the only time in the past 5 seasons that Juve was even in first, that 1 week last year. So basically, since winning the Scudetto in 2020 up until now, this is actually the second time, which is pretty crazy. I thought at least maybe there was one other week thrown in, at the beginning of the season sometime that they're in first, and no. But like I said before, obviously, it's a good feeling, but at the same time, no disrespect to LS or Como. These are teams that Juve should beat, whether it's 1-0 each game or 3-0 each game. Obviously, it is nice to see a more attacking side. But again, Hellas and Como, these aren't teams with known for their defense. I know Verona just beat Napoli the week before, but it seems like they got almost, I'd say, lucky in that game. It's interesting to see the integration of youngsters. In the first week, we saw Mangula score. This week, Nicolo Savona score. Right back player who came through the next gen team. Who these are guys it feels like they're almost placeholders for the guys who are coming in that they've got through all these transfers, but they've made an impact, and it's nice to see. Again, I kind of talked about it with Mangula last week. I don't think they're players that are going to sustain this. They're obviously not going to score every game, but if Motta has these guys available throughout the season, when let's say they play one game on Saturday and then a Champions League game on Tuesday, it's going to help, right? It's just good to have that depth. So we'll see. There's other players that I've liked so far, namely Cambiaso. For me, he's been one of Juve's best players in 2 games. He scored in the first game against Como. Last game he played more of a center midfield role, and he's just all over the place. He's a player, I've talked a lot about him last year. Obviously made the Italy team in the Euros, didn't really have a big impact. But he's just a player that's very versatile. So it'll be interesting to see how Motta uses him throughout the season, whether he wants to play more right back or maybe that center midfield role. Obviously, Vlahovic, 2 goals against Verona. That's what we need. We've talked about him so many times. He's a player where when his head is on right, he's a good player. So I think maybe the coaching change, fresh start for him is good. Obviously, he scored against Como, ruled out. So, at least for him to get these 2 goals, he almost had a third goal. Savona's goal, it just missed Vlahovic's head. If it hit his head, it would have been Vlahovic's goal. So we just need that Dusan. For me, it's just going to be interesting to see, how the new transfers integrate. We'll talk about the transfers later. But it's exciting. Obviously, it's a good start for Motta. There's a lot of talk on social media. It's a good start, but I want to see this consistently week in, week out, and I want to see this on Sunday against Roma. For me, this Roma game is huge, because if they don't pick up points or they drop points, it's almost going to feel like those first 2 games don't even count. Then there's going to be talk. Oh yeah, there you saw. Oh, okay, it's just Como and just Verona. When they play big teams, they're going to struggle. But again, we'll see what happens on Sunday. Obviously, it helps that they're at home. I know it's going to be a tough game. Roma's not an easy opponent, and it feels like they always have Juve's number these past few seasons. So I'm excited for that one. And then obviously, we have the break after. Then after, again, Juve plays Empoli and then Napoli. So another big game. Another Juve Napoli is always huge. Just it's more than 3 points, especially these past few seasons. It's definitely turned into a big rivalry. So for me, it's those games plus starting the Champions League. I think it starts around the same week that Juve plays Napoli, the 3rd week of September. Draws tomorrow, I believe. So for me, it's those games where if Juve wants to win the Scudetto, if they want to be a top team, they have to beat those top teams as well.
Absolutely, and you know what? It's crazy to see like just so many changes of coaches, right? We've said it, and are you surprised? Again, we're gonna take it with a grain of salt. It is Como, it is Verona, but are you surprised, Nick, at all in terms of Motta's start, or this is kind of what maybe you expected, after seeing the schedule and who you would be facing to start off the season?
Honestly, I'll admit that I'm surprised, just because what I saw in preseason was not so good. And I know,
sure.
you could say, oh, it's preseason, but there was games that they basically played with the same roster that they play now, and they look completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess people who say, oh, it's just preseason, they're right. They use these games for integration, for practice, but. It did worry me. It did worry me seeing them play like that, especially when they did play with their basically full 11 in the preseason. But clearly, something happened. They just got more accustomed to each other. But like I said, with all these new transfers, for me also, it takes time for new players to play with each other. So for me, it's also let's see how long it's gonna take before these guys integrate into the squad properly. Maybe you don't change what's broken. So maybe Motta goes with a similar lineup versus Roma. Like, I don't expect any of these new players to start versus Roma. Obviously, Coop Miners, Conceição, Gonzalez. I really don't see them starting. They really just joined. So start Mangula, start Savona if Motta trusts them. Let's see how they do against a big team, and if they're playing well with each other, continue with that chemistry.
I kind of agree with you. I feel like as if it's kind of a tough spot to kind of expect that much, but also in a way where I'm going to disagree with you, like, hold on, why is my camera blurry? There we go. Like those games that I guess that you should call them wins shouldn't worry you too much, especially how the way they've started so far this season, because it is normal to be wary because of what has happened in prior seasons before, but this is a different Juventus in terms of identity with Motta, especially with the whole Chiesa going to the Liverpool thing now. It just seems like as if they're moving forward and they're trying to like let go of what made them struggle in the past and see where they can go from here. Now, yes, it's not like we were saying at the start of the show. It's not big teams, but but look at the foil in Roma, for example, as I complained before. It's like those were the same concept. You're playing against two teams that you should get a win, and you don't get those wins. So that's it. Could have happened to Juve, but it didn't. Juventus got the job done. They played against those type of teams, and they got the results that they needed. Now, is this now? So now is this going to continue? Maybe we'll see. It definitely helps in the confidence department, especially with certain players that. Last season did not have the best of seasons, Vlahovic, but
no, but it's the truth.
Yeah, that's just the way I see it. I think going further on into the season, I think Juventus is probably going to get back that little edge or confidence that they had, and it's not going to be the same thing as last year. Or last year they just seemed a bit sort. I did kind of predict them to finish. I think was it fifth. I think because we'll see. I'm still going to stick to that prediction. But so far, they're proving me wrong. That's for sure.
I think also, sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Nick. I just wanted to say, I think they're like Johnny said, they're looking forward, and I don't really think they're looking back. It's this is a team like any winning franchise of any sport. They really hold on, obviously, to their past rather than looking forward. And thinking of first time in a long time, I think Juve, as much as it pains us to say, is kind of looking forward instead of kind of just looking backwards. And they seem to have now pieces to really lean on in terms of the starting 11. Their depth, I think, is their depth department so far now with all these transfers coming in seems to be improving. And besides maybe the Conceição one, because I think that's just a straight loan and no option, no obligation to buy. Not too many like band-aid solutions. Like the band-aid solutions in the past that Juve have done in the transfer market has been endless. The band-aid solution in the midfield here, defender, attack, like they've been all over with these band-aids, and if I think finally it seems to be that that they're kind of turning that page and forgetting getting somebody for free and only paying his wages. Like they're actually spending a bit of money, and then it maybe it's for the better. Again, I think this is very early to say. I have them in the top four. I know I put them, I think, in fourth, but again, this is the early stage of the season, and I think that early hype, that early juice for Motta is still there. We'll see if and when that ever goes away, and how they can battle the punches, going forward, the big games coming up, and not to mention, they'll obviously still have to play, the Inters of the world, the Milans of the world, and so forth. So it's an interesting time with Juve, but it seems to be that they're headed in the right direction in terms of on the pitch and off it as well.